Scott, it was about 6 days ago that Pablo Rodriguez held a press conference, and he was asked about, what's going to happen going forward. The scandal had been brewing, and he said this.
Months ago, I was elected by the members because I know how to win. Look at my track record. So I know how to fight, and I know how to win, and I'm here to win. I'm going nowhere but to the caucus.
Well, he went to the caucus this afternoon at around 2 o'clock, and then moments later we found out that he had told the caucus he, in fact, is resigning. We're going to hear from him tomorrow morning. There's now a press conference scheduled for 10:30, which we will carry live here on CJD. Scott, we've talked about this before, about the Pablo situation. I guess the first thing I'd like to know is your reaction to what we did find out today.
Sort of in the same vein as exactly what you're saying. I mean, there are laws of political gravity in politics, and you could feel them imposing themselves over the last few days, particularly when that latest story came out about the fundraiser. I really think the writing was on the wall once the anti-corruption unit indicated they were investigating. That just meant it was miles and miles ahead of questions, investigations. And you know how the cops are. They never say the investigation is over. It just hangs and hovers over you. And how can you have that in an election year? So I'm not surprised that this day came. It felt like this day was coming. But, Pablo was also right in that newser. He has been a winner. And now, Parti Libéral Quebec, they're euchred. Somebody will lead them. But boy, what a crackerjack day this is for the Péquistes. Because just a couple of months ago, he looked like he was a threat to them. And as Legault continues to fade, Péquistes look like they've got the whip hand.
I will point out there's a Léger poll, actually, I think out today or yesterday, showing that the PQ went from roughly 40% down to 35% in the most recent polling. But, of course, that's all before this happened. Although this story's been going on now. It'll be a month tomorrow, Scott, since the first Marois risky part of the story happened. So you kind of wonder how much, damage this does, in fact, do to the provincial Liberals.
Oh, I think it's a devastating turn. And in particular because of the specific nature of what this is. This is an internecine rivalry. This is a bit of a civil war going on here. Risky says, I'm not going to run. No kidding, you're not running. So you ended up in a situation here where people were firing internally against one another. Camps have divided up. People are counting names and, settling scores for the future. This is ugly. And this is exactly what you don't need when you're in an election year. You need to pull the team together, make certain everyone's rowing in the same direction and focused on the opponent. And, I've known Pablo. I was thinking about it today. I think I've known him since 1990. I think maybe 89 or 90 was the first time I met him. I have a high regard for him, and I was excited that he might, turn the party's fortunes around. But that isn't going to happen. So now Pablo Rodriguez, in terms of Quebec politics, is going to be a story of what might have been.
Does this end his political future, as far as you're concerned?
Well, you never say never, especially for a guy like him who has such a robust network. And I do think there will be a little bit, a bit of time passes and people will go, geez, man, that was kind of a raw deal, eh? It felt like some stuff mushroomed out of control there. Assuming that, there are investigations and determinations and there's no fault that's laid at his doorstep. So, there are ingredients for a bounce back, especially for a guy who's been as resilient and long-standing as him. But is he going to be the premier of Quebec? Sure doesn't feel like it. It's hard to see the path to that. So,
okay,
it's a savage day. This is going to be a blue Christmas for the Pablo Rodriguez household.
I want to move on, but I want to ask one last part of the question here, which is, and I know that François-Philippe Champagne was asked about this today and gave a flat-out no. Do you think there is someone from the federal Liberal Party who would want to step in and run for this job?
So you use an interesting word there, want. I'm not certain there is someone that would want to. The party, divided, feeling a little bit on its heels, might be enticed to look to someone, might try to ask a Champagne who's like an indefatigable Energizer Bunny type character, or a Melanie Joly who brings brand name value, might try to turn and persuade those people. My guess is, there's no time before the next election. They can't screw around. They're probably just going to default to Maillard.
Okay. As I said, I want to move on, so let me get to Mark Carney convening. I guess this will be the first virtual First Ministers meeting since that whole MOU with Danielle Smith. And this would mean that, of course, David Eby is going to be in this meeting. And what are you expecting? What sort of fireworks might you be expecting from that?
I wouldn't expect fireworks. I think everybody will be on their best behavior. I think people will treat it as a pro forma meeting. One thing that's really important about these kinds of events, when it comes to the question you ask about, like, well, there are obvious tensions here, is that they're virtual. And that takes a little bit of the steam out of it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're in the same room and you got a team of 4 people behind you, and they've been talking to the team of 4 people that are behind Danielle Smith, and you have to pass each other in the hallway, and then, oh my God, it turns out we went to the bathroom at the same time. You know what I mean? There's ingredients there for a little chemical reaction, but when you're like on a Zoom call, like, let's face it, people can just, like, you know, whatever, mute their microphone and go, all right, like, let's cruise into Christmas. So I wouldn't expect huge fireworks. I am curious about what it is that causes the Prime Minister, whether it's just like, let's just do a check-in so I can't be accused of ignoring the premiers, but what causes him specifically to, you know, bring them together? I think there's just as likely to be a lot of questions around, like, do you really think we're going to get by on Kuzma? Like, don't you think, Prime Minister, that Trump's going to come hunting for us? So I think my guess is it's going to be more about that. But we'll see. Maybe the Prime Minister has an ace up his sleeve and has a reason for calling him together, has a piece of news he wants to make.
The other thing I would ask, I don't know if you happen to hear Vashti's interview with Pierre Poilievre the other day.
Yeah, I sure did.
So, I mean, give me your sense of what you heard there and what came up, because I saw a story today, and it seems the drum beats are getting a little bit louder. I don't know if that's fair to say or not. It seems that way to me.
I think you're...
Yeah?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think you're reading that right. I do, and I'm not going to go, like, wild-eyed crazy and say his leadership is in true jeopardy now, but, you know, Vashti put the question to him precisely the correct way. You lost an election that you were supposed to win in a walk. You lost your riding, which was supposed to be absolutely inassailable. You've lost 3 caucus members, counting one who chose not to run rather than stay in caucus this fall. And there's a buzz that you might lose the majority with more defections. So, like, what's the case for Pierre Poilievre? Tell me what's rocking about you? And that's the challenge, and I think people are starting to ask themselves that question. Again, because he has such a numerical advantage in the party membership. You could end up with this split, which I think would be very interesting in the new year. You could end up with a sizable endorsement of Pierre Poilievre's leadership from the rank and file, from the membership at the end of January. And you could end up with growing dissatisfaction and disaffection among the caucus who have to deal with them every day. And that could be a split to watch. Like, do you see like a bunch of Quebec conservatives as an example who say, you know, like, this guy just got an endorsement from a bunch of, like, anti-vax convoy conservatives he signed up in 2022. That's not my party. I don't feel comfortable here. This isn't my home. So I think he's got work to do, man. He needs to put some W's on the board.
I don't know how you do that right now. I mean, in the midst of everything else that's going on, you can rant and rave about increasing prices, food prices, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing seems to have changed in Pierre Poilievre's attack, though.
So I don't think the right strategy for Pierre Poilievre is to go on an apology tour and say, I've decided I need to alter myself. I need to be a softer, kinder person. And I don't think the right strategy is, you know, to double down, as he seems to do always, and go, the problem isn't me, the problem is Mark Carney. Mark Carney is, you know, supposed to have fixed everything, and he hasn't fixed everything. So let's, like, nail him to the nearest plank of wood we can find. Yeah. I think for Pierre Poilievre, he needs a modulation in his message. And, you know, it's real simple, man. Like, in all honesty, you know, I worked in politics for my entire adult life. Start with this principle. Say something you believe that people also believe. Get their heads nodding. And so there's lots of things he could say that gets people's heads nodding. The problem is he starts with a premise that causes people to shake their heads. Like when he goes, well, you know, like, why hasn't he had a deal? Carney should have a deal. People kind of go, well, I don't know, man. It feels like dealing with Trump is like an impossible thing. Like, how do you get a deal out of Trump? And what's it worth? So he's starting on a premise that doesn't force agreement from the voters. it causes them to shake their heads, and then his manner is caustic. So, if I was him, like, I would just make an adjustment. You don't need to make a complete, makeover. But to me, he looks like a guy who's kind of lost his confidence, and so he just goes, listen, I throw a good fastball, I'm going to go back to the fastball.
Right.
And he's a pitcher who pipes that fastball right down the middle of the plate, and somebody's going to turn it around and crank it right out of the park.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of describing it. I think to myself, when you talked about he's not going to go ahead and change his demeanor, if you will. What did they tell him during the campaign? What was the big message? Smile more. Well, that didn't work out too well. And it's too late to do that. It's a matter, to your point, Scott, to me, it's a matter of just trying to sound more like an average citizen and less like a guy who's just always attacking, which I think is in essence what you're saying. And
the average citizen message that he tends to send out, they argue, we, the conservatives, under Pierre, we do capture the voice of the common person. We talk about the guy who's, feeling the price of gas every time he fills up his Ford F-150. But it feels like cosplay.
Yeah.
It feels put on. It feels manufactured. It feels like, the lights are on, okay, I'm going to say these things. As opposed to just being more conversational and rational and going, I don't know how, I can only imagine how brutal it is dealing with Donald Trump. But I know this. I think as he flies around the world, the Prime Minister sometimes takes his eye off of the ball that concerns us Canadians here at home. Day by day concerns. I think if he just, dropped it from fourth gear to third, maybe.
Couldn't agree more. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, you get the sense it's cosplay for him too often. Scott, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I'm Luke Wilson. Join me each week for Film Never Lies. We're going in depth on football and a lot more. We'll pull back the curtain on life in the pros and dive deeper into the stories making the headlines. No hot takes, no lazy narratives, just real honest conversations. You can watch or listen to Film Never Lies on all the TSN platforms and iHeartRadio app.